Most people wake up every day already running, chasing something they can't even name. The alarm rings, the phone lights up, the mind starts racing. We chase success, love, recognition, as if life were a ladder we must climb before the clock runs out. We scroll through screens filled with other people's smiles, measure our worth in likes and numbers, and fall asleep wondering why the emptiness still lingers. The city hums with noise, engines, footsteps, and hearts beating to the rhythm of not enough. Yet beneath the noise, something quiet whispers, "This isn't it." But few ever listen. We spend our lives reaching outward, trying to fill a void that was never meant to be filled, only understood. So ask yourself, what if everything you've been seeking was never outside you at all? Alan Watts once said, "We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own. For we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society." And in those few lines lies the truth that 99% of people never see. We spend our lives wearing masks that were handed to us before we could even speak. Names, identities, expectations. We're told who to be, what success looks like, what love should feel like, and even what happiness means. And so we begin to live not as ourselves, but as reflections of a world that's asleep. But there comes a moment, sometimes through heartbreak, silence, or loss, when the illusion cracks. When we begin to see that the life we've been chasing is a mirage, and what we've been running from is our own presence. Alan Watts didn't just speak about philosophy, he spoke about waking up, seeing through the game, and remembering that life is not something to win, but something to experience. This is not a sermon. This is a reminder, a call to wake up from the dream and finally see. Most people are asleep, though their eyes are open. They walk through crowded streets, sit in meetings, laugh at jokes, and make plans for tomorrow, all while being miles away from the present moment. They live in a dream built by the world, where meaning is replaced by motion, and awareness is buried under routine. From the moment we are born, society whispers the same lullaby. Grow up, work hard, be successful, find love, build a future. And like obedient dreamers, we follow it without question. We go to school not to learn who we are, but to learn who we should become. We chase careers not because they fulfill us, but because they make us appear valuable. We fall in love not to connect, but to complete the image we've been told we're missing. Look around. The cities never sleep, yet their people are exhausted. The clocks keep ticking, but no one remembers what time is for. You see it in their eyes, a dull glaze of repetition. Wake up. Work. Scroll. Sleep. Repeat. Millions of hearts beating to the same rhythm, each convinced they're living, when in truth, they're only existing. Alan Watts called them the sleepwalkers of civilization. He saw that humanity had become hypnotized by its own inventions, technology, progress, ambition, mistaking the tools for the treasure. We measure our lives in currency, forgetting that time is the only real wealth. We glorify busyness as if exhaustion were a badge of honor. We chase happiness like a shadow that disappears the moment we try to grab it. But here's the silent tragedy. Most people will never question the dream. They will defend it. They will tell you that this is life, that comfort, control, and conformity are the keys to peace. Yet deep down, they feel the quiet ache of disconnection, a longing for something they can't name. Watts once said, "It's like you're playing a game of hide and seek with yourself, pretending not to know who you are, And that's the great illusion, the belief that you are separate from life, that you must earn joy, that meaning is hidden somewhere in the future. But life isn't waiting at the end of your goals. It's here, in this breath, in this heartbeat, in this very moment you've been taught to ignore. The truth is simple yet terrifying. You don't need to become anyone. You only need to wake up. Yet waking up isn't easy, because the dream feels safe. It gives us identity, purpose, and belonging. To wake up means to see the cracks in everything we trusted, our careers, our relationships, even our sense of self. It means realizing that what we called security was really fear, and what we called purpose was often distraction. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. The illusion begins to fall apart, and for the first time, you start to live not as a machine, but as a being. The colors become brighter, the air feels alive, and you begin to sense something sacred pulsing beneath all things. Most people will keep sleepwalking, chasing dreams that never end. But for the few who dare to awaken, the world transforms. They realize that life was never a race to win, but a mystery to experience. There comes a moment in every life, sometimes quiet, sometimes explosive, when the dream begins to crack. It doesn't always happen in temples or during meditation. Sometimes it happens in the middle of traffic, in a hospital waiting room, or when you're staring at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering why, after everything you've achieved, you still feel empty. That moment is awakening. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It often feels like loss, the loss of illusion. Everything that once made sense starts to dissolve. The stories you told yourself about success, identity, even love, begin to fall apart like sand slipping through your fingers. And you realize, perhaps for the first time, that you've been living as a shadow of yourself. Alan Watts described this awakening as the moment you stop mistaking the menu for the meal. For so long, we've been reading descriptions of life, words, ideas, goals, but never tasting it. We've been studying maps of joy, but never walking the path. When awakening happens, you finally see that life was never meant to be understood. It was meant to be felt. At first, it's terrifying, because when the noise fades, you're left with silence. And in that silence, the mind panics. It has lost its story. The I that was built from years of comparison and ambition begins to crumble. You may feel disoriented, lonely, even afraid. But that's not the end. That's the beginning. Watts often said, the ego is nothing other than the focus of conscious attention. When your attention shifts, the ego loses its grip. You begin to sense something vast, something that was always there, the simple awareness behind all thought. The watcher, not the story. The silence, not the sound. You start to notice beauty in things you never saw before. The play of sunlight on a wall, the laughter of a stranger, the rhythm of your breath. Every moment feels alive, raw, and sacred. It's as if the universe had been whispering all along, but you were too busy thinking to hear it. This awakening is not about becoming special or enlightened. It's about remembering what you've always been, consciousness experiencing itself as a human being. Watts said it perfectly. You are the universe looking at itself, pretending to be a person. And when that realization dawns, everything changes. You no longer see yourself as separate, not from others, not from nature, not from existence itself. The boundaries begin to blur, and life becomes a dance rather than a struggle. But awakening also comes with responsibility, because once you see, you can't go back to pretending. You can't unhear the silence that calls you back home. And so begins the delicate balance, learning how to live awake in a world that still sleeps. People may think you've changed. They'll say you've become quiet, distant, maybe even strange. But inside, you know the truth. You haven't withdrawn. You've finally arrived. The noise that used to fill your days no longer matters because you've found the stillness beneath it. It's in this space that gratitude is born. Not gratitude for possessions or achievements, but for existence itself, for the chance to breathe, to see, to feel. The moment you wake up, you stop asking life to make sense, and you start marveling that it exists at all. This is what 99% of people never realize. You don't awaken to escape the world. You awaken to finally see it, to live it, to feel it, to be it, fully, fearlessly, and now. Once the illusion fades and the mind begins to quiet, something extraordinary happens. You realize that life was never a problem to solve. It was a song to dance to. And for the first time, you hear the music. You start to notice how everything moves in rhythm. The rise and fall of your breath, the ebb and flow of your emotions, the changing seasons, the laughter and sorrow that weave together the human story. It's all movement. It's all flow. And you, who once tried so hard to control it, now begin to see that you were never meant to conduct the orchestra. You were meant to dance within it. Alan Watts often compared life to music. He said, "We thought of life by analogy with a journey, with a pilgrimage, which had a serious purpose at the end. But the thing is that life is a musical thing, and you were supposed to sing or dance while the music was being played. For most of our lives, we rush toward a destination that doesn't exist. Graduation, marriage, success, retirement, always preparing to live, never actually living. But awakening shows you that the melody is playing right now, and the only tragedy is to keep waiting for the finale that never comes. When you see life as a dance, even pain has rhythm. Heartbreak teaches you depth. Failure teaches you humility. Silence teaches you presence. Every experience, no matter how dark, becomes part of the choreography, and you stop labeling moments as good or bad. They're simply movements, expressions of existence flowing through you. You begin to laugh more, not because everything is perfect, but because you understand that perfection was never the point. You see the absurdity of taking life too seriously, how we humans cling to control, terrified of uncertainty, when uncertainty is the very essence of the dance. Watts once said, "The only way to make sense out of change is to plunge into it, move with it, and join the dance." And that's what awakening teaches you, to stop resisting and start participating. You stop trying to fix yourself because you finally see there was never anything broken. You stop running from your emotions because they too are part of the rhythm. Sadness, joy, fear, peace, all of them are notes in the same divine song. When you stop judging them, you begin to hear their harmony. And in that harmony, compassion is born. You begin to see others differently, not as competitors or strangers, but as fellow dancers stumbling through the same song. Even those who hurt you are no longer enemies. They are mirrors, showing you your own reflection. You forgive, not because they deserve it, but because you understand they were asleep, just as you once were. The dance of life is not something you control. It's something you surrender to. And the more you surrender, the lighter you become. You move with the rhythm of existence, unforced, unafraid, and fully alive. One day, you find yourself sitting in silence, doing nothing, and it's enough. No goal, no desire, no destination, just being. And in that stillness, then, you realize the most profound truth of all. You were never separate from the dance. You are the dance. The universe moves as you, breathes as you, experiences itself through your eyes. And in that realization, peace arrives. Not the peace of control, but the peace of trust. The peace of knowing that the music will continue long after you stop dancing. And that's exactly how it's meant to be. Watts said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple, and yet everybody rushes around in a great panic as if it were necessary to achieve something beyond themselves. But now you see, there is nothing beyond. The dance is all there ever was, and you were never missing the rhythm. You were only too busy trying to lead it. When you finally understand, not with the mind, but with the heart, a quiet peace begins to settle over you. The world doesn't change. You do. The same streets, the same people, the same problems. Yet somehow, everything looks softer, lighter, more alive. Because now you see it all for what it truly is. Not a test, not a race, but a fleeting miracle happening in real time. Alan Watts once said, "We do not come into this world, we come out of it, as leaves from a tree." You begin to feel that truth in your bones, that life is not something happening to you, but through you. You are not a stranger in the universe. You are the universe expressing itself in human form. The ocean doesn't create waves to destroy them. It creates them to dance, to rise, to fall, and to return home. And so it is with you. For years, you tried to control the tide, forcing the current of your life to obey your plans, your fears, your expectations. But now you realize that control was never the point. The point was surrender, to flow with existence, to let go of the illusion of separateness, and to trust that the same intelligence that spins galaxies also beats your heart. Most people will keep running, searching, striving, believing that peace is waiting somewhere in the future. But those who awaken discover that peace was always here, hiding behind the noise of wanting. It's in the sound of rain, in the stillness of night, in the smile of a stranger. Everywhere, if only you stop long enough to see it. The truth is, 99% of people don't realize this, that life doesn't need your effort to be beautiful. It only needs your awareness. And when you stop trying to figure it all out, something magical happens. You begin to live effortlessly. You breathe without thinking, love without reason, exist without purpose, and somehow, that becomes the purest form of purpose. Alan Watts called it the dance of the universe. And now, as you stand here, awake, aware, and alive, you finally see that you were never watching the dance from the sidelines. You were part of it all along. The rhythm was always in you. And when you let go, you don't fall, you float. Because awakening isn't about finding something new. It's about remembering what was never lost.